darkest man I've ever been since I first started in. But this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. But this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning.
Welcome to Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake coming to you from the void, and I want to introduce a new segment today. I hope we do it often. It is called the Wicked Citizen of the Day. We're going to go into what this person has done to become the Citizen of the Day. But I'd like to bring you first to a little context from my man, Sam Seder. He's got a show called The Majority Report. It's a wonderful show, extremely informative, extremely funny. And he talked about yesterday, why it is so effective to contact your representative, to contact government officials about things. We tell you how you can all the time. We try to explain why it's important. But man, when we get a chance to show some Sam Seder on here, you know we're going to. Here is the Majority Report.
When we left a week and a half ago, Kathy Hochul had the opportunity to pick the next Court of Appeals chief judge. This is New York State Court. And she chose a right-wing chief judge nominee, Hector LaSalle. And from what I have read subsequently, it was important to her to appoint a Latino to this position because we have a woeful lack of Latino representation.
Very quickly, I do want to say I frequently talk about right-wing Democrats, or conservative Democrats, rather, and I talk about how dissatisfied I am with the New York Democrats, literally the Democratic Party in New York. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Within New York State government. The desire to do that is one that I think is like, I applaud. But the one that I applaud even more, Jessica Ramos and Gustavo Rivera have publicly announced their intention to vote no on LaSalle's nomination. Ramos wrote, Latinos deserve representation at the highest level of the legal system, but we also need courts that respect workers and the right to organize. Rivera said something similar.
Yes.
Appreciating the importance of having Latino representation in our government, but in New York, but find a different judge. There wasn't one nominated by the sort of nomination committee, but tell them to go back and do more work. It appears like LaSalle's not going to get out of committee, but it's possible that maybe with Republicans, they can get it to a floor vote. And it still appears he's going to lose the floor vote. And this is because there was huge pushback by people contacting their state senators in New York State. I mean, this can be done, folks, in these type of situations. If Hochul is a Republican, or if Hochul's even Cuomo, or a slightly different era, maybe you don't see this.
True.
But it's a different era. When you contact your state senator, first off, they're like, whoa, because nobody contacts them. They never hear.
Yes, indeed.
The idea that they would get 5, let's say, or 10 calls or emails based upon any given issue, that's like, to them, that must represent like a 95% of the opinion in their district.
And when I used to work for the city, like in terms of directing calls to those offices, for example, if someone called the borough president's office where I worked, state offices, state legislatures, both in the Assembly and Senate, are part-time. And also, as a result, their staffs are very small. So it's like it is not only just in terms of politically expedient, it's also just logistically, because they're saying we are getting hounded by calls about these things.
Right. I literally,
the phone is ringing.
Just for the record, this is a brand new channel. This is a little baby channel. There are enough people right now that will see this video in fact, there's enough people concurrently watching, of which there are a handful, to affect statewide politics. It's that easy. You can do it. Links in the description. Contact your representative. In a little bit, we're going to direct some of that so that we're theoretically all contacting about the same things. But if there's an issue that genuinely matters to you, contact your representative. Let's get a little bit more from Sam Seder here.
Getting off the hook about this
to get
thing.
20 calls in a day about this shuts down the office almost.
It means a meeting should be happening or something to be like, we need to have a response to this.
And that's, like, and this is a theme that we've talked about when we have, Bobby Big Wheel on. What's the name of the
Future Now and
Future
the
Now
States Project?
The States Project. Dollar for dollar, like your return on investment in terms of effort or dollars on this level is just so much greater than it is on the federal level. So, thanks to those who called their New York State senator. If you haven't, still do it. I mean, like it's because there's a lesson every time something like this works. It is training state lawmakers, and it's training ourselves to show like the sort of the paths in which to exercise power.
I'm going to go even farther. It sets the tone. It sets the tone for a campaign. It's 2023. People are going to be running for 2024 soon. You start contacting about things like this. Kathy Hochul, in this case, nominating a right-winger for some GD reason, nominating a right-winger judge. Why? Because his name was Gomez. You start contacting your representatives, your governor, your senator. You look up who they are. When you find that, you find their contact information. It's pretty easy. It's a grand total of 2 Google searches. We make it a step easier. We have a link in most streams at the bottom of the stream for contacting your representative. You contact them. You tell them what you think. You can keep it short. It becomes what they talk about during their campaign, which makes those ideas more popular. You want to know how crazy right-wing extremist ideas get spread throughout the Republican Party so quickly? It's that. There's a bunch of right-wingers that make a hobby out of contacting the representatives. All it takes you is an email. If you prefer to phone call, if you prefer to call with a phone, you can make a phone call instead. But that is all you have to do, and you will affect politics in your state, which will in turn affect down the line politics nationally. If somebody gets elected campaigning on progressive issues because they got 20, 30 calls over the course of a year about those issues, they have a chance of becoming, well, first of all, if they get elected on those, they are going to stick to those more closely. You won't have to do work afterwards trying to get somebody who was elected on wishy-washy, let's make deals with extremists on the right policy. You won't have to then try to convert them to a progressive. No, you'll have somebody who says, I went progressive, I got elected, I'm going to stay progressive. And further, there's always a chance that they will become popular on a national stage. Fetterman is just about a household name right now. Maxwell Frost is on his way to becoming a household name. These are a couple of great progressives. AOC is a household name. You want to know how much a voting bloc can matter? Look at their evil opposites. MAGA right now, 20 MAGA representatives are holding up the Speaker of the House vote. They're morons, so it's destructive to their party, but obviously we're going to do the opposite. Progressives will lead positively. I would never dream of cutting off Sam Seder. Let's let the man finish.
Yeah, and it's on this issue, like this use of identity politics by the conservative sort of power establishment or whatever basis to, use it to conservative ends is really problematic, and it's something that it's good to see like progressives take a stand against, because it's so cynical, and I think it's really dangerous and needs to be nipped in the bud.
Well, that's why, if you have a moment to send a thank you to Ramos and Gustavo Rivera,
Absolutely.
Do so, because it is much harder to push back in this situation without some key Latino lawmakers saying, we want a Latino there, but we want one that supports issues that are important to these people, as opposed to just sharing a last name that resonates with Latino voters. And so that's really key.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely. And that was just a blue screen. I'm sorry, I was adjusting my I prefer to sit in the other corner. Hey, there he is. So, what does this translate into in terms of a new segment? Because that's something we talk about all the time on this channel. Well, somebody out there was listening to these videos, particularly when I did one called How to Get Big Money Out of Politics. And then I did a sequel, which was even shorter, called No, Really, This Is How You Get Big Money Out of Politics. It is a guide to getting big money out of politics. It involves a couple of easy steps that are similar. This person, Spear5102, got after it so much, did such a hell of a job, and did a hell of a good job, and so much so, and they talked about it in the comments, and that made me think, man, we got to recognize when good, responsible citizens are out there just crushing it. So this is our first ever, what I hope is the first of many. This is our first wicked citizen of the day, Spear5102. They write, okay, I contacted my representatives and my governor. I signed the petition for Citizens Take Action and signed up to volunteer for Citizens Take Action. I also posted this to Facebook and sent it to family and friends. Boom, boom, boom. Just spreading the love, spreading the message, and being effective. Let's go over that again. You get one vote and an infinite number of phone calls, an infinite number of emails if you so choose. Contacted their representatives, contacted their governor. That's two people that just heard, or that's two factions that just heard that they need to get big money out of politics and are going to be swayed now. Sign the petition for Citizens Take Action. That means this group, which is trying to get politicians to endorse the 28th Amendment, which would help us get corporate money out of politics. This group can now point to their petition list, which is one person longer. It shows that they have more influence when they contact these people. Signed up to volunteer for Citizens Take Action. That means they are going to be speaking on behalf of Citizens Take Action to spread this further. Also posted this to Facebook and sent it to family and friends. That is more people seeing a progressive message. I'm flattered that it's me talking in this case, and anywhere you get a good progressive take, I got nothing but support for. Thank you. I've been waiting for a citizen to take action because Congress is not going to do it. True. Thank you. Let's get this done. That is the attitude you need. That person and people like him are going to be what saves this country. And it can be you. If you do any of the things listed in our videos, such as contacting your representative, which is the number one thing we say to do. This is how we get political influence. It's how we build it. It's how we make our representatives do what we want. We tell them. If you do that, drop it in the comments. I read them. I get a kick out of reading them, as a matter of fact. Let me know in the comments, because I want to start putting up a Wicked Citizen of the Day whenever I can. I want to highlight those who are out there mixing it up, doing a great job for the USA. Thank you, Spear 5102. You are the first ever Wicked Citizen of the Day. Well done. Oh, just a delight to see. Just a delight. Now, let me tell you, somehow, through the morass that is American politics, we currently have a couple of good progressives in office. One of them is AOC. And yet again, I got misled by a video title. I thought she was going to jump ship yesterday night and vote with Republicans because of the video title. No. She's on the ball. She's very much on the ball. And she gave a great interview on MSNBC. It ties in. It ties in with the chaos that is going on in the House that continued today. Quick update if you missed it. Kevin McCarthy failed again to become Speaker of the House. He could not get 218 votes. The MAGA holdouts, of which there are a solid 20 now, stuck to their guns. And you know who else stuck to their guns? Every Democrat. Every single one. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Here is AOC talking about it on MSNBC, not falling for the tricks corporate media tends to try to play with wording, and generally just having a good time enjoying Republican chaos. Here it is.
Joining us now is Democratic Congresswoman from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, thank you so much for being here on, well, a day that will go down in the history books.
Thank you for having me.
Let's just start with what it was like to bear witness to this Republican fracture firsthand on the floor of Congress. How did you leave the chamber today?
You know, I was honestly surprised. I did not think that Kevin McCarthy was going to have the votes in the first round, but I didn't think that it was going to be as catastrophic for him as it actually was. I think one of the things that we saw was, we saw that there were reports of there being up to 20 holdouts on the Republican side, except usually in the 24 to 48 hours before a vote, there are a lot of negotiations that happen, and Kevin McCarthy was engaging in some of those negotiations in order to bring that number down. Now, I didn't think he was going to have the vote at all, but we at least thought that that number would be less. But to get into the high teens, in nearly 18, 19 members refusing to support his speakership is an astonishingly high number. And I think it very much speaks to the lack of faith among elected Republicans that they have in Kevin McCarthy's speakership. And for him to have several months since the November elections and still not be able to clinch it, I think is very much a testament to a lack of leadership. And it is very surprising.
It is a testament to his lack of leadership. We talked earlier when we did a live stream during the last House vote. By the way, we're going to go up again live at 8 for the next one. We talked earlier about Hakeem Jeffries' display of leadership skills. This is part of it. Democrats are not shaking. They're not breaking ranks. They are acting as one, which makes them stronger. Good on you. Kevin McCarthy didn't have the votes he needed going into this this new session, and he already moved his stuff into the Speaker's office, so much so that he opened himself up for well-deserved criticism on that arrogant front. And Matt Gaetz, a known child sex trafficker, Please sue me, you little punk. I would love discovery. But nonetheless, it opened him up for well-deserved criticism from Matt Gaetz, who wrote a letter asking, should we boot this guy out until we decide who the speaker's going to be? AOC's right on point.
To see that, but in the contrast on the Democratic side, we didn't have a single defection, and that unity is very much going to help us in hopefully being able to secure some procedural wins and take advantage of certain moments.
And I definitely want to return to that topic in terms of the Democratic unity and the conversations that have been happening inside the caucus. But it did not go unnoticed, shall we say, on the internet and elsewhere, that you were on the floor having some conversations with Republicans, including Matt Gaetz and Paul Gosar.
I'll be honest, this made me
enlighten
nervous.
us at all as to what those conversations were like? And is there any hope that you guys work together to get Hakeem Jeffries elected as Speaker of the House?
I think in chaos, anything is possible, especially in this era. It is unlikely, but there's always a possibility. I do think that in terms of some of those conversations, listen, some of us in the House of Representatives are independent in certain ways from our party. And I do believe that in some of those conversations, there are things that are happening on the floor. These machinations are happening on the floor. And sometimes the leadership of your party, in this case, the Republican Party, will be making claims in order to try to twist arms and get people in line. And a lot of times, information and truth is currency. So sometimes to be able to fact check some of the claims that McCarthy is making, whether Democrats are going to defect or not, et cetera, is important in order to keep him honest and to keep people honest in general. And so, I think what was important today was to send the message that we were united behind Hakeem Jeffries as the now minority leader or as leader of the Democrats, and that there would be no defections, that Democrats are here, we're not going anywhere. And if they want to play ball, we're open to that.
That's going to make a lot of people, I think, on one side of the aisle very happy and a lot of people on the other side of the aisle very concerned. Is it your sense that there is a plan that the Freedom Caucus has? There's a real question about who's driving who's running the operation here, who's driving the bus. Is it Kevin McCarthy or is it, Andy Biggs and Paul Gosar and Matt Gaetz?
Well, I think one of the central challenges here is that in Kevin McCarthy's speaker run, within the Republican caucus, there was no number two. The Republican caucus did not really have a full-throated race for speaker.
Very true. And it's coming back, obviously, it's coming back to bite him. But the fact that they didn't even have an idea of who choice number two would be is shocking. You see the MAGA people switching out who their number two, number three, number four is. But I don't think there's really an excuse for, especially given the history of Republican speakers of the House, which is shady and full of scandal. I don't think there's an excuse for not having just a backup plan, just out of practicality.
There was no challenger in the last 2 months that has emerged. And I do believe that is the central Republican problem. Whether McCarthy pulls this through or not, the core concern here is who would ascend to that seat. I do not believe that Kevin McCarthy has the votes. I believe that a lot of the opposition to him is very personal. I believe his leadership style is incompatible with a lot of Republican members and certainly the Democratic caucus. Yeah. And so I think that is the central question. If not him, then who? You have certain members of the Freedom Caucus who have, of course, nominated other people, but the rest of the Republican Party will not rally, I believe. They will not coalesce under Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan himself doesn't want it. They will not coalesce.
Jim Jordan doesn't want people remembering that I think it was 6. He had 6 wrestlers back when he was a coach come to him and complain that they were being sexually abused. and he did nothing. And there's no way, I'm sorry, AOC, let me get you on a better frame there. There's no way that he wants the attention that comes with being Speaker of the House.
Someone like Andy Biggs. And so the question is there anyone in their caucus that can build that consensus? If there isn't, McCarthy's team may have to come to the Democratic Party. And if that's the case, then what would that even look like? It's rather unprecedented. Could it result in a potential coalition government? Could we get Democratic chairs of committees as a result? We don't know. But
okay, so that is the one thing that made me think, maybe work with them. Personal take, though, no. You can't anybody with an R next to their name. You cannot trust their word. They have demonstrated their word is worth nothing. So this initial talk from AOC made me a little bit nervous because I just don't, any deal they say they got with Republicans doesn't mean it's going to happen. But she brings it back.
Ultimately, what we saw here today is that in the last 2 months and now, Kevin McCarthy failed to unite his caucus and failed to even, I think he failed to respect the power of the Freedom Caucus enough as well. They are members of his party in order to build that coalition together. He failed as a coalition builder not once, not twice, but 3 times. And
Absolutely.
We reconvene tomorrow morning. And I'm not quite
Update
sure
for today.
what he could or would do that would change the
times,
calculus between today
but
and tomorrow.
6 times.
And that's a huge question. We know that approximately 7,000 boxes of pizza were delivered to McCarthy's office, which suggests it's going to be a long night of negotiating.
Let's move it past a little bit here.
I also want to note that some of the requests made by these Republican holdouts are also small d Democratic in nature in terms of the rules of the House.
We talked about this as
over
well.
a very long period of time, the concentration of power in the House of Representatives has concentrated to an extraordinary amount in party leadership of both parties. And what we see from the House Freedom Caucus is their attempt, however guided, misguided, destructive, constructive, whatever your perspective is, they are making attempts to reform the rules of the House in a way that would dilute McCarthy or the Speaker's power and elevate the power of of individual members in the House. And that, I think, is an essential crux that is part of the rub here in their inability to create an agreement.
So a little bit ago when I was talking about how, despite the fact that I dislike Gates, I dislike Boebert, I dislike, and that's an understatement, everybody who is MAGA, we can use this chaos to progressive benefits because their lack of understanding of politics, their lack of care about actual politics means they occasionally, by accident, wind up with policy suggestions that would be good, that we would appreciate. Just like when right wingers were threatening to say, well, what if we make it a law that Joe Biden has to release his tax return? Yes, of course, yes, we would like that. Well, what if any member of Congress had to? Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there. Yes, sir. We would love that. We actually care about the principle behind the thing. We actually want to know if our politicians are corrupt. So, yes, she is touching on now that part of the reasons listed for the split in the Republican Party are, as she says, small d Democratic issues that we can get behind. Don't think for a moment that the reasons listed are actually why they're doing it. They are only interested in power grabs, MAGA. But sure, we'll take advantage of that. Yeah.
So, if McCarthy really wants this, he really needs to look at how he can get to the 218 that he needs. And you got to find that math somewhere. If you can't get those votes from the House Freedom Caucus, and he has provided many, many, many concessions, and it's just not working out.
I got to ask you, getting concessions from leadership can be done in many ways. And the House Republican Freedom Caucus has chosen a pretty public and fractious way to gain concessions. What happened on the Democratic side of the aisle in terms of this unbelievable unity in a very big tent party? I mean, what was the conversation like between parts of the Democratic Party that are much further left, much more progressive than some of this more centrist leadership, and in particular, Hakeem Jeffries, the new leader? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that are happening right now. One is that in order for us to take advantage of the fracturing on the Republican side, we have to operate as a full entire bloc. This margin is extraordinarily slim. We're talking about a margin of 4 votes. And so if they get to a point where they lose 4 or 5 votes and we stay 100% united, then there are possibilities where if it's not this vote, it could be other votes. There are procedural moments in the House where you can prevent, in their case, catastrophic legislation from coming to the floor if we remain united. I think some of these conversations coming forward is an acknowledgement of the severity of this point in history. We are talking about a very real danger in a Republican-controlled House. And that could mean that a very narrow, slim margin of 4 to 5 votes could have implications on whether we can raise a debt ceiling. It could have implications even on the 2024 election. And in January 6th
whether or
was
not
all
it's
about
actually
the
democratic.
refusal to certify every state's election results. And it is no secret that Republicans have indicated that there are several who are willing to do it again. They are willing to reject certification
Ought to be in prison,
of a presidential election
right
if
now.
they do not like the results. And I believe that on the Democratic side, the acknowledgement of how fragile our democracy is in this moment is a critical part to that unity. We absolutely have differences, but I think a willingness to put that aside in order to figure out how we can navigate and exploit some of these major moments to advance really the issues of working people, raise wages, protect health care, and really defend a lot of the gains that we have made in the last 2 to 3 years is going to be very critical.
I mean, I got to agree 100% across the board on AOC's feelings there. We had we had a Rebel HQ video. I'm actually going to probably play that video tomorrow. It's part of a larger talking point I want to get to at some point. But recall the 2 things we've talked about today. Sam Seder talking about how effective contacting your representative is. AOC talking about how narrow the margin is in the House. Let's combine those for a second. Right now, it's embarrassing to be a Republican. If you grew up in a culture where being Republican was synonymous with being like a person that wears a suit and tie and does very practical business. It's never been the case that Republicans are good at handling money. In fact, they got us into our last 2 recessions, and Democrats are the ones that got us out of it. But if that's the culture they came from, their new electives, their newly elected representatives, and they're getting embarrassed on national television now for 2 days in a row. As a matter of fact, going into another vote for Speaker in just a couple of hours here, they are very likely wondering why the hell they signed up for the Democrats. For the Republicans. If they come from a purple state, they're certainly thinking, I wonder if I could have made it if I went blue instead of red. Not a bad time to contact your representative if you're from a purple state. And if they are Republican, tell them, hey, I'm glad that you're there, but I'm embarrassed that you're a Republican. If you get an offer to change parties, I would support you. Just that simple. If you decide to change parties, I will support you. if they're wondering if they could get away with it, you could right now, in 2023, change the majority in the House. Worth thinking about. You might be one of the 5 or 10 calls necessary in order to push them over. So, if you're in a purple state, contact your representative. Let them know you're okay with them supporting Democrats. In fact, yeah, if you're in a blue state, might be a good time to just to make sure we don't get anybody jumping ship. Might be a good time to say attaboy. Whoever your representative is, you may have business with them. So consider giving them a call or writing them an email. There is a link in the description. I'm sorry we did not get to the Rebel HQ video today, but it did. There's logistics to consider as far as the equipment I'm using. Always upgrading, though. Hopefully these things won't occur so much in the future. Well, I'll tell you what. Went live earlier, going live now. Going to go live again later because I am having a blast, an absolute blast with this House chaos. We're going to keep covering it because it is history books mention important. And it's also a perfect way to show the American people the difference between what it's like when Democrats are in charge and what it's like when Republicans are in charge. Republicans have no business running a sandwich shop, much less the country. This is WICKED, WYCD. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. I'll see you soon.